All right.
Welcome back to Upfront. I'm your host, Isabel.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And today we're joined by Josh, our
Hi.
fellow editor, right?
Yeah.
How's it going, Josh?
Pretty well. I've been busy, just like everybody else, just kind of wrapping up our semester.
You are, and you're graduating this semester,
I
aren't you?
am. I've completed all of my requirements, and because I had a little mix-up of pay attention to your electives, because that kind of bit me.
What
I
mix-up?
took music appreciation, which I thought would be as a cover for general elective. For some
Yeah.
odd reason, it wasn't. So I had to take one elective just to get my associate's degree. But I'm all flush now, so I walk the stage in May.
Wow, congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how long have you been at Front Range?
So I guess I don't know how you want to put that in decimals, but 2 years, one semester. The extra semester is because of that weird class
Yeah, the weird thing.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Cool. So graduating this semester, and where are you transferring to? Are you planning to transfer to university?
I am. It's this interesting bleed over right now. I have been accepted and am going to CU Denver to their film department. My degree, I got a certificate and a degree in multimedia technologies here from FRCC, and I'm transferring over to the CU film department for my film degree, undeclared, for
Yeah.
my specialty.
Why did you choose CU
So
versus like Metro or any other Denver
my
universities?
my ultimate choice for my schooling was that since I'm a little bit older, I just kind of I've lived a certain amount of life, so I didn't need to go and get the full Pac-10 4-year traditional experience that you would at CU. But that allowed me to go to CU Denver, which was a little bit cheaper, for tuition-wise.
yeah.
It actually has a better film department. And networking-wise, when I leave there, I'm in the heart of the city, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I can bounce off of other filmmaking professionals there.
Wow.
Sounds
That's-
like a good
yeah.
idea.
Thank you.
Good plan, and congratulations for everything, getting in all that kind of good stuff.
It's nerve-wracking, but, I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you came back to school, right? You came back to college after having a professional career.
Yeah, so
How did you go about that? Do you want to share that with us?
sure. So I'm 42, and in the height of the pandemic, when the shutdown happened, I was a line cook. I had been cooking for probably at that point close to 27 years. And it's not something that I necessarily chose. It's something that I happen to be good at, that I did for money. And it after pretty much half of my life in that industry, I just wasn't fulfilled. And I had been doing videography on the side for about a decade, but I had kind of hit a little bit of a threshold with what I knew and how far I wanted to take it without a degree of some form.
Yeah.
Because the more I started to look in, just obtaining jobs with already existing companies,
Yeah.
the requirements are, 4-year degree, et cetera, et cetera. So I needed that piece of paper to go along with my working experience.
So is media something that you always wanted to do? Did you ever think about culinary arts or anything like that, since you had been cooking, for
No,
such a long time?
it's something that I've always had in my heart. Ever since I was ever since I was young, I've always wanted to do that, and I always wanted to go to school. But my household was of a particular religion that didn't support academic expansion. It was believed the more ultimately the more you know, the more you doubt. So that part of my life was never truly embraced. So this
Yeah.
has been something on my own. It locked away in my heart, and it took the pandemic when I was just sitting on my hands like everybody else, and I hit that perfect midlife crisis where it's like, okay, I'm not going to go out and get a younger girlfriend. I'm not going to buy a motorcycle, but
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to go back to school.
Right. And you reached out to Front Range,
Mm-hmm.
and they introduced you to the transfer program with CU, or how did you go about making that plan?
So that's something that so I was wide-eyed and, just naive to the whole experience, my first semester. Took some classes, obviously took music appreciation, which I loved, but it just didn't count,
Yeah.
So from there, I learned my lesson and I started looking into classes. And I found out that FRCC has a wonderful ability, and yet it's a separate list of the Pathways Guaranteed Transfer courses. And those are double dipping. So for example, right now I'm taking math for liberal arts. This is checking the box for my math requirement for FRCC, and it's a transfer course, so it's also checking the box for my bachelor's degree.
Wow.
In my transfer process, like there were some subjects that I just, for a lack of better terms, like there were really fun classes that I knew CU had that I really wanted to take.
Yeah.
So there were some courses here that I didn't take advantage of just because I wanted to dip from the bigger menu,
Yeah.
But I did double dip as much as I could, and I was able to reduce 80 credit hours needed at CU for basic requirements down to 38.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I still have to do a 4-year curriculum just because of how the film department is regulated. But when it comes to my basic educational things for my bachelor's, I was able to cut that in half.
Wow. That's awesome.
So that's my biggest tip. If you can double dip, please do.
How did you find out about that? You talked with your advisors, you did
Stumbled-
your own research.
Completely stumbled upon it. I was just doing a random Google search, like not Google search, but search bar in the FRCC website itself. And, it gives you, a wide variety of you just transfer classes, and it gives you a whole bunch of gobbledygook.
Yeah.
So you have to sift through that, but then you find the pathway is guaranteed, like the keywords guaranteed transfer classes.
Yeah.
Once you find that list and and then sift through that of what's available, depending on your semester. Some are filled up, some don't exist, unfortunately, but that varies. So from that list is where I chose. They're like, you need English and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, cool. I double checked English to all my English choices in the other list, and they totally met each other and then surpassed it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've been here at Front Range for what seems like quite some time. And I kind of just wanted to get your thought on what you think about Front Range.
It's been nothing but great for me. This. I was cooking for so long and was struggling, just for air, for life, in an industry that was paying my bills, but it wasn't fulfilling me. It was, not to denounce it because it's a fantastic profession, but it was sucking the soul out of me particularly. And FRCC was that, in a hectic time, it was that life preserver. It gave me, hope that I wasn't too old to do this. And, I entered in probably the weirdest time, the FRCC has ever had, the pandemic.
Yep.
But I was able to get into the swing of things, like schoolwork and, just being a student again. I feel it was uniquely suited for me because, admittedly, since I was raised by religious parents, I was also homeschooled. I had a real teacher. It wasn't like a bunch of crackpots telling me that Jesus rode dinosaurs or something. But I had a real teacher from the real school district,
Yeah.
so I had that education, but I was homeschooled. And because of that, because I grew up a shut-in, to continue my academic was just kind of returning to what I knew in a bizarro way.
Yeah.
So I was able to, start, and then FRCC opened up,
Right.
which brought me to the paper because I figured I want out of the kitchen anyway. So, let's do something completely different that's really scary. So thus I must do it. And, I decided to join the paper as a photographer to start. But those waters were murky because of the pandemic. It's like, what are you going to, nothing, everything's closed. What the heck are you going to take a picture of? So I became a writer, and which is not something I was prepared or really looking for, but it was something that needed, and it was still, it was still game. Within that time, I wrote about, noir movies with the release of the Batman with Robert Patterson. So I wrote about, noir cinema and, the history of, and, it was challenging, but I did reach out and start grasping at different things.
So coming back to campus to in-person classes, was that like a culture shock for you?
A little bit. It was like starting over again, because now, now I'm like dealing with real people, not just little boxes.
Yeah.
So,
Because I could see how the online classes seemed a little familiar to, because you're at home, you're
Yeah, it was
learning
easy.
from the teacher, it's a little easier to like get used to. How did you adapt to the college classes? Was it easy for you, the in-person classes?
Same, I was already a student at that point, so those gears were rolling, but it was different fears, as an older person. It's like, oh well, now I'm in a classroom with people that I'm literally that saying, I could be some of your dads, which I had to then deal with my own insecurities and just what that means for me.
Yeah.
But for the most part, granted, and kudos to the generations after me, you don't seem like you care. So it seemed like I was the only person really caring. And once I was able to get over that, that was like probably my biggest hurdle. As a student coming back to in-person classes. Outside of what I was learning.
I wonder what like the percentage is of working adults that decide to just make a career switch into.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I think it's a pretty high number, right?
I found some statistics. It looks like National Center of Education, about 6.2% of students enrolled in undergraduate degree granting institutions were age 40 or older in the fall of 2019. And that takes a lot of courage to do, like
I could believe that for the statistics. I could believe that. I think it's definitely.
It wasn't like, we were definitely sprinkled in there, and I was never quite the only one, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I know what it's like to be the only one.
Right, yeah, it's just whether you're being excluded or not, when you walk into a room and you realize, I'm the only one here. That's
It feels weird, you
Yeah.
already come in there with all these like predispositions of like, what are
Exactly.
they gonna say? Are they gonna treat me any different? What is this? Is it gonna be any harder for me?
right. They're all going to laugh at you. Really
Yeah.
comes out.
I think
Exactly.
the thing is, you just got to think of it like this, and I always think of it like this, but you got to treat people the way you want to be treated. Treat others the way you want to be treated. That's simple as that. So. If I was in a situation where I'm in a classroom and I know, the guy next to me, he's in his 40s, I'm still treating him like he's a student here, like me, that wants to learn and, and be here. So, that's how I always see it. So,
Yeah, no, it's, I haven't felt like I was discriminated upon. Anything that, any negative feelings that I've had have probably come from me.
yeah, which is good because I think FRCC, obviously, the students here are pretty nice.
It has been, and like just the school itself. Like I also like this school has also paved the way for like getting mental help. They have counseling services here, and I definitely utilized that as a student. And then my counselor here wanted to go into private practice, and I actually followed him to his private practice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I actually found something that worked for me, and getting help on top of help, and this college has also fed me. I've used the Boulder campus's student pantry a couple of times, and I know that the pantry here at the Westminster campus is ramping up, and like that's amazing. Like when times are really hard, I was able to just make do with what I had. So to say that I have a warm place in my heart, for this college, because it has given me so much. And
I mean, yeah, speaking about the food stuff, obviously we have a lot back here in the corner, which I don't know if you guys can see or not, but most of that would be, my guess is to help.
These are prizes.
Are
they?
Are they?
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No,
I was going to say they were prizes. Like, that's a lot. Who's going to want a chicken noodle soup for a prize?
But
yeah, Front Range has really good resources. I really like that our for example, the writing department, and you guys hear me talk about the math department a lot, but those two departments are available at the Westminster campus. However, any student from any campus, it doesn't matter. I have to double check this, but it doesn't matter if you're at CCD or not. You can come and utilize those.
Yeah, and,
as long as you have a student number.
Yeah, and if you can, to back you up, from what I understand, you can submit digitally, via the My Courses, and get revision back within like a day or two.
Exactly. I heard that's what we were talking about in my LA class, about how you could send an email and, like you said, submit it digitally, and they'll get back to you in like really quick, in like 1 to 2 days almost.
It's a side hustle, for our English teachers. So yeah, they'll just grade it, put their input, and send it back to you really quick. So it's just lack of emotion. It's just here. Good job.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I mean, I don't take many writing courses, but if I were, like, I'd definitely utilize it.
Well, I didn't know until, I took my English class, and they're like, oh yeah, if a couple of the requirements were send it here and then revise it, and, show me the proof that you did send it in, and so you understand revision processes.
Yeah, I think it's a really good way, obviously, to have your paper checked and kind of get an input on that, because I know a lot of students in my English class have sent a few of their papers in because, they want to see if it looks right, if the format's correct, if any spelling mistakes and stuff like that, which I understand you could obviously, do that on your own, but it's like always having, someone else to kind of, give you like questions or just kind of revise it, look at it, second pair of eyes, basically, which
well, even, it helped me even, being an editor here, in the various experiences.
Right.
Because the paper writes in a different format. We use AP, where most all of our reports are not. So, it's just writing the same things, only laying it out differently.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that those resources exist.
I'm glad too. Yeah, like you're saying, we definitely have a lot here at the school, and I always strongly suggest students to utilize those resources, because you never know.
Or even just donate if you want to be involved. There's a donation basket at Student Life, and you can just drop in and drop off bags. You don't have to say anything to anyone. You just drop in, drop off some stuff, and it's always really greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
No, to pay back into the system is great.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your media career. What type of media are you looking to get involved with?
So videography, ultimately. I'm long-winded, so I'm basically a storyteller by nature, and I've always loved video. I was one of those guys that bought the DVDs and like listened to all the commentary and actually learned a lot from commentary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, which is kind of like a lost commentary has kind of like been a lost art because you don't get that digitally. But back in the day on DVDs, you got filmmakers talking about how they did things.
Oh, like is that the behind the scenes?
Yeah, so some commentaries would be really entertaining, like anything from Kevin Smith, is just his commentary. So you would watch the movie and you would hear the creators and stars talk about the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And some are really enriching, some are really hilarious. For anything Robert Rodriguez produced, he did commentary for and even shot his 10-minute film schools. And he and others back in the day, because I happened to grow up in that magical era of indie, film and how it was blowing up in the '90s. So I had a lot of assets at my disposal, and I just kind of gobbled them all up. And then that graduated to me going to the public access television station that I in the town that I lived in at the time. Durango, Colorado, just started creating content because it was free. They taught me the bare bones of how cameras worked, composition, and then outside of that, it was a public access, so anybody could rent the cameras and create content under certain rules. So I just started making content and recording bands and like this sort of thing, and then I met other people that were passionate about the same thing, and then we went on to make some, stop animation and just kind of little skits.
Yeah.
But, again, I was at a glass ceiling of how much I knew because of, education.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was still very much a cook in the cook lifestyle.
So that was more like a hobby for you?
Exactly. But I never gave up on that hobby, so when I came to FRCC, I knew what I wanted to do. And because it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I was able to start taking their classes. And, I will bitterly admit, when I started, it was the in-class selection was limited because, we were coming out of COVID. However, now they have so many more assets and just classes for video production. However, I took everything that I could possibly take for video. I took audio classes where I ripped out, the audio out of the Copacabana scene from Goodfellas and re-scored everything. I had a lot of fun, and I even got hired by one of my teachers who decided to leave and move to Germany. Apparently, I won his favor so much that he offered me to subcontract all of his accounts. So I've taken over for him in all of his outside video accounts now that he's in Germany. And that's been huge.
Yeah, that sounds like it's huge. Wow.
So have you worked on any projects while here at FRCC that you're most proud of?
I did make a short. It was for class, and it was the prompt. So it was a 2-prompt system. In videography 1, we had to make a video for future advice to people going through the pandemic. So I made something humorous but very basic about hoarding toilet paper. Fine, whatever. Advanced videography class, he came back to the same prompt, and he's like, 1 year in, what would you do? And I'm like, ooh, because I had already, fulfilled this prompt in a basic way. So I'm like, all right,
Yeah, like
let's get creative. So I created a black and white short that actually it actually got me into the film school because you have to submit a
Submit.
script or a
Mm.
work, and
Mm.
I submitted that, so it helped get me in. But it was a little black and white short of myself because I had to film it all in the pandemic. But
Mm.
the basic concept is I don't recognize my own face because I've been wearing this mask for so long. So
Wow.
it's in black and white. There is a man speaking French, as a voiceover to make it appear as if it's an avant-garde French film, and it involves me like screaming, I am Joshua into the mirror with the mask on because I don't recognize my own face. And then,
Yeah.
and then I rage out
Whoa.
and leave the bathroom. And then you can see myself laughing at myself in the reflection of the mirror as I walk out. And it was a whole thing. But that is the thing. I called it separation of self. And that is the most pleasing thing for me that I've made since being here.
I would like to.
I'd like to watch
We
that too.
will put the link in with.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
So, because now I'm intrigued. I had never thought about that. Obviously, like I don't. But yeah, so what's that creative process for you like as a student?
So for that one,
Because you're thinking about deadlines, but you're also trying to be, so you're trying to be as effective but as creative as possible.
so creatively, a lot of people are different. I did write a lot of stuff down, but in other ways, I also shot it in my head. Like there was a lot of just sitting in a room, either like playing video games or, just listening to music or, doing something that doesn't use, a lot of RAM.
Hmm.
And I just pictured what I wanted it to look like. And
Yeah.
since I was the only actor, it was just like, okay, I had to hype myself up and just try things, so where I should have been writing, I would be brushing my teeth and then just kind of stop and look myself in the mirror and, just like, yeah, okay, and, just kind of work it out. So when I went to film it, I filmed it in 6 hours. Like I just kind of banged it out because I had already shot it in my head. I will say that's just because I have various lenses and I know what those lenses look like. So just a familiarity with equipment.
Wow, that's dope.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
yeah.
like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. I feel like in my world, I'm always dealing with numbers and things, and I never think about what is your media inspired by? Like, who do you look up to?
Oof.
Yeah, I think that's a good question.
And
I
like, are
mean,
these people that you have looked up to for a long time, or is there anybody that you've been introduced to that you
it could be
have?
honestly more than just one.
It's, it's changed throughout the years.
Yeah,
One person that I've always looked up to is Robert Rodriguez.
yeah,
I am half Mexican, so he is a Hispanic filmmaker that literally made El Mariachi with $7,000, 3,000 of it, which he gained from entering into a medical study, and they were going to pay him $3,000 to try out some medications, and it was also free room and board. So he was in this hospital and he finished a script. He then took that money and made his whole idea was, I'm going to make 3 movies. I'm going to sell one for X amount of dollars, and I'm going to sell it to Mexican TV. Then from that, I'm going to make another one, do it again. And on the third one, I'm going to take all the money and make my my dream. So he did exactly that. And his third attempt was El Mariachi, which graduated, into his whole career from Desperado, Once a Time in Mexico, Spy Kids. He's directed the episodes of The Mandalorian now. Sin City is all him. He has been in the film industry from such a low level and carved his own way. He resides in Austin, Texas, originally from San Antonio, resides in Austin, refused to come to Hollywood because he enjoys what he makes and he's able to do it on his own terms. And he's always been a solid creator, a solid collaborator, and he is somebody that I've always been envious of, and I hold him in a certain regard, in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I'm looking at his resume, and it's long and hefty. It looks like he, in 2018, award from Will Rogers Motion Pictures Pioneers Foundation.
Yeah, he's, I mean, some people, I was a big early Kevin Smith fan. Until a certain point, and then I dropped off, and that's unfortunate, but that's my taste. Mm-hmm. But there were Quentin Tarantino. Like I was growing up when these guys were like hitting their stride and like knocking things out of the park. Yeah. So it gave me hope. I couldn't help but to have hope because I'm looking at these older cats, like generation above me. I'm like, well, look, they're doing it. He's maxing out his credit cards, but like he made Clerks, So that gave me hope. And then that escalated, in the age of DVDs, where again, I could listen to commentary, even, get little nuggets about composition and lighting from like the commentary from Armageddon, when Ben Affleck's talking about how he used to get yelled at by Jeffrey Bruckheimer, just because he was asking too many questions. But I got a little nugget out of there. I learned what the vertigo effect, with your camera when you're focusing in and pulling the camera out. Like I learned how to do that, from commentary. You have to practice it. Yeah.
I thought that was always like a something that you had to buy or something like have.
No, so you have your figure, and so if you're looking at it from a side profile, your lens is zooming in, but your camera is actually pulling out. So because you have these two opposite things, your subject stays in the middle because they're stationary, but you're pulling the frame and pulling the background all at the same time.
How much practice does that take?
I had a run through where it took me 3 hours and I got like 4 seconds of desired effect.
Wow.
Because ideally you have to have a dolly, so something on wheels. Yeah. Because I'm trying to do it myself, where to do it correctly, you have somebody paying attention to just focusing, and you have somebody else paying attention to moving.
It's honestly, I think it's such a cool effect.
It's amazing. I've always loved that effect, but like, I never had a title for it, and I never knew the actual concept until I picked it up on a random bit of commentary.
Wow,
that's awesome. The stuff that you can find online.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, online and in DVDs.
Physical media.
Yeah, I honestly like. I don't know. I think I used a VCR once. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. No, nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I bet you were really into the blockbusters, huh?
Oh yeah. So Blockbuster back in the day, they would list the MPAA information on the back. So if it was rated PG-13, they would list the reasons from the raters why. So growing up as a really religious kid that wanted to watch The Matrix, but it was R, I would use the back of the Blockbuster boxes as like, I was like a little lawyer, so I'm like, so it doesn't say use of hard language. All it says is, I remember The Matrix was futuristic kung fu fighting. And I'm like, you see, that's not foul, or, going against God. So we can totally rip The Matrix. And I won. I totally watched The Matrix over and over again.
Wow. Yo, I can't, man. That's so awesome, first of all, that you did.
Thank you. I needed to see it. I needed it.
Yeah. So, I think you were like born. You know, there's certain people that you already know what they're meant for.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell.
I don't have to be famous. I just at this point want to earn a living and just do what I'm passionate about.
Right.
You know, and it's going to be the win for me. You know,
I think.
Yeah, you know, in a way, I don't want to be famous. I just want to be highly regarded, you know, if I'm going to be vain, you know. So it's, you know, I just want to, I know what it's like. I know what a life is like doing something that I'm not into. So let's spend the other half doing something that I'm at least into.
Yeah, because you were a cook for
for
30,
like half of my life, you
yeah.
know, pretty much.
I definitely see a lot of people these days talk about how, you know, the whole I don't want to be famous part. And recently when I was watching a YouTube video about the whole background about Daft Punk, and, you know, that was kind of what they were talking about, is why they, you know, wear masks anyways, is because they didn't want to be famous, you know, from them. They wanted to, you know, off their music. That's what they wanted to be famous about. And so that's why they wore the mask, and, you know, always wore it. I mean, you know, that was kind of their whole motto right there.
You want to hear a funny story?
Always.
So like in 2017 or something, there was this Mexican artist, and he became so popular. I was a fan of his, but he always wore a mask. And
Okay.
It was an emoji mask. It was, you know, that purple devil emoji?
I think, I think I vaguely know of this guy.
Yeah, so he would always wear this emoji mask, and you know, he grew like a large following. Like everybody was listening to him, you know, from coast to coast, Mexico and in the US. Long story short, he premieres his first concert, and he comes out and he's wearing the emoji mask, and like people, and like he takes it off, and like people like flip out. Like nobody liked it, and that was he never like hit again after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never heard anything about this.
Yeah, well, he's a Mexican artist. Like all his music is in Spanish. It was also like a new genre of Mexican music that hadn't really been done before. And then I feel like he kind of opened up this new genre, and then like a bunch of different music types started like stemming out. But yeah, that was like his like downfall, was the mask thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there are certain artists, like I couldn't tell you, you know, what the members of Slipknot look like. I've never seen them without their creepy ass masks.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think when I was
Now I want to look them up.
I feel like same thing goes with Marshmello, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's another one.
I felt like back in 2017 to 18 and 19, you know, the talk about him wasn't about his movie, you know, it was about whether or not who is it really behind the mask.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a few points when, you know, sure, he's going to take all that and try to make something out of it, where I remember he ended up getting, there was this one actor that he ended up like kind of making a video as, it was kind of like a prank, like, oh, here I'm Marshmello, I'm gonna take the mask off and you get to see who it is. And then he takes the mask off and it's this famous actor. I think I forget what his name is.
It's like George Clooney.
yeah, something like that. And I remember the internet was just like, oh, well, that's not funny. Just actually show us who you really are. But, you know, I think like whether you have a mask on or not, I mean, for some people like Daft Punk, it really does make them who they are. And for other people, you know, you have a whole fan base now that's like getting annoyed because they really want to see who you are behind the mask.
Yeah. It's just, I guess there's a fine line of, you know, just being culturally cute and then Batman. So, you know, at what point, you know, do you just decide to, you know, be a symbol?
I think if it's a part of what you do, and it's
that
like
must be really hard, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if it's like a part what you do, if it's like maybe the costume of your character, of your music, then I say go ahead and embrace it and, you know, wear it. You
Exactly.
know, don't really listen to all these other people saying, oh, take it off, we want to know who you really are. Because like I said, for Marshmello and for so many other people, it was really, that was the only talk about him. no one was talking about his music, even though at that time period he was making some of like the greatest songs from him. So
Right.
um, yeah, I think.
Well, it's I think even Lady Gaga might have learned her lesson a little bit because in her
Hmm.
early stuff, like she showed up to an awards ceremony wearing the meat dress,
Hmm.
and
Oh,
I could
yeah.
tell you everything about the meat dress, but I couldn't tell you the song that she was nominated for that year.
Exactly. Hmm.
So, at that point, her like iconism,
Yeah,
whatever,
for the weird
it, yeah,
costumes.
it like her icon status trumped what her actual art was.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that for sure.
Wasn't it Alejandro?
Yeah, you see, I would
Yeah,
actually have
right.
to go Google all of this up.
Because I feel like Lady Gaga was in her prime when I was like in late elementary or late middle school or
Yeah.
something. And so I didn't really watch like the VMAs or anything
Uh-huh.
like that. But I was listening to the music because it would come on the radio. So
Hmm.
I didn't know. This is probably me just being, like young and ignorant, but I didn't know
You're
that
the
she was
other side
doing.
of that coin, you
Yeah,
know?
I didn't know she was doing all this crazy stuff until I hit like high school, and they used Lady Gaga as an insult. Like, you look like Lady Gaga, and like, what does that even
Yeah, you're
mean?
like from which year to which year? Like she's had a lot of
She's like Madonna.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. But it's just to wrap it all back to the school. It allowed me to make my to start out my journey to make my own footnote. So I owe everything to this school. It has an amazing variety of resources. Westminster campus has drones now, so if video
Oh,
students want to
right.
get all fancy and learn how to use a drone, apparently you guys can.
Wow.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's not active yet, but it's supposed to be active during or after the summer.
Yeah, perfect.
Very curious to see what that is about.
Yeah, exactly. Just practice around the campus. We have,
Mm.
I don't know if I'm pointing in the right direction. I'll go that way. We have all these beautiful marshes and,
Mm.
trails and stuff that you can practice on. It's
Definitely
pretty
don't get
sweet.
your drone stuck up on the roof
Yeah,
though.
I'm sure the
Can't.
deposit would be
Yeah,
insane.
definitely don't break it, get it stuck on the roof. I feel like, because this is kind of a funny story, but like this was back when I was at least, I think I was either 10 or 11, and drones started getting really popular to the point where I was like, Dad, I want to have a drone for Christmas. And I got a drone, but I definitely crashed it a few times.
Yeah.
But it survived, but definitely crashed it a few times. But, if it's going to be here and the school's providing it to you, don't break it. Don't get it stuck up on
Yeah,
your roof.
I hope they're smart and it's just like a GoPro system. That's why I think a good learner.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
takes a lot to bust those little things.
Drones these days, they're not really, they're not cheap. They're pretty expensive,
They are.
especially when
They
you
still
break
are.
them. When you break them, it's hard to kind of fix them.
Yeah, it's done.
So yeah,
That's it.
definitely.
Cool. Well, I mean, just to bring this in full circle, you feel a lot more fulfilled
I
since.
I do. I take two. I do. This has really paved the way for me to actually achieve my dreams. And for a while there, I didn't. I kind of lost my dream because I didn't think it was possible. And this institution has given me a second chance on my dreams and myself. So I owe everything to Front Range.
And why is it important to follow your dreams?
Time is the fuel in which we burn.
Right.
So why waste energy on something that's not going to pay back? Uh, we put so much out into the universe and it never gets returned to us. It's time for us to start, completing that circle. We need to put in what we get back. And I feel pursuing your dreams is just, energy spent wisely. Because if
Yeah.
not, what are you doing?
Do you feel like you owe it to yourself?
I do.
Yeah.
And as cynical as I am and can be, I don't have any regrets coming here. This was the right move.
Awesome. I'm really glad.
Yeah, that's
Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you, and congrats on your graduation.
Thank you.
congrats. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining in. This has been Upfront at Front Range Community College. I'm your host, Isabel. Make sure to follow us on TikTok at the front page FRCC, and you can also find us on Instagram, the same domain. We're gonna link down your
My
short
video,
film.
yeah.
Yep.
Because I really want to check that out.
Definitely want to check that out.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next week.
Yep. All
Bye.
right. Peace.
Yo, that was a good episode. This is behind the scenes.
If you guys want anything from the coffee down in your lunch, anything like